to the Daily Grind. My name's Kelly, and we're on our sixth episode already, which is pretty awesome. So, six means we're gonna have another special guest on. So I'd like to introduce you to Mark Sansait. He is a self-taught software developer, owner of two businesses, and drone enthusiast. Lives and works in the Milwaukee area, and overall, great person to have on our podcast. So, welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for the invite. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and talking to our listeners on our podcast. This is super exciting. You have a wealth of knowledge from tennis to coding to business to now drones. Like, so I don't know. Maybe if you want to jump right into that, that's something that's recently on your daily grind.
Yeah. So almost all of them that you just mentioned are basically self-taught. The only one that's not self-taught is tennis. My parents got me into tennis with a lot of private lessons, a lot of group lessons, basically to just get me out of the house and have me do something during the summers in between school. And then a little bit of background for myself. I went to Whitewater for 4 years, got my business finance degree. Got into the real world doing financial analysis, financial advising, which is obviously sales. Realized it really wasn't for me, and then eventually taught myself software development. And with a few lucky breaks and a few lucky contacts I've had in my network, I became a professional software developer. And then through that,
Wow.
I ended up basically starting two businesses. Still have to declare LLCs, but one of them is a tennis business, and the other is a soon-to-be drone business. But I'm working through the paperwork and the LLCs and the banking, the good old banking route for it to have separate bank accounts. But kind of self-taught for the most part, and it's been a wonderful ride so far.
Sure, that's wonderful. So, I guess maybe let's rewind a little bit. How did you become interested in like software developing, like coming from a business finance background and then kind of switching gears to something completely, I wouldn't say completely different because there's a lot of overlap in some areas, but yeah, how'd you get that interest?
Well, in all honesty, there is a little bit of overlap. So the best software developers that I've worked with in the past, both from a non-technical and a technical position, the best software developers I've worked in the past understand the value of business. They understand how basically every business works. Because if you think about it, every business is the same, whether it's a car dealership or a software company. You've got your revenues, you got your expenses, you got your profit margins, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I was in sales, I mean, I was making decent for myself, especially considering I live in the Milwaukee area. I was doing okay, but I was very unsatisfied, felt very alienated, and then I started taking time to look around, say, hey, what other things are out there? And eventually I stumbled upon software development, and obviously what you would picture a typical software developer to be is they have their computer science or computer engineering undergrad of 4 years, and then they would have an internship and all that jazz. But we're getting to that point in time in technology and the spread of information to where you don't need a traditional undergrad software development background to be a good software developer. And to be honest, two of the software developers I know that I've worked the best with, one of them actually never graduated from, and he went to Northwestern, and the other one had an undergrad from Marquette for, I think, music education. So it's just vastly different.
Different backgrounds.
Yeah, completely different backgrounds from what you would typically expect.
Did you take additional classes like after Whitewater to learn software developing or
so
workshops?
after I graduated from Whitewater in holy cow 2012, I did this the finance thing and kind of bounced around the Milwaukee area between Waukesha, Elm Grove. I did that for like maybe I think 4 to 5 years. And then eventually, that's when like, hey, I'm not happy. And that's perfectly okay, given this day and age, not being perfectly happy with the career, not being happy with the projection of your career, more importantly.
Mhm.
There are a lot of things out there that could turn I would argue anyone with an IQ of 85 or higher
Mhm.
into a professional software developer. Um, One of them is teamtreehouse.com.
Okay.
And then another one is Plural Sites. So teams, and I'm not sponsored by any of these. Like I
Mhm.
truly did use these two resources
Mhm.
to basically learn crash course on, hey, what is an object? Hey, how do programs actually work? How does a website actually work, both on the front end and back end?
Mhm.
And I believe they do have some free trials. So I highly encourage anybody, even slightly curious about software development, especially coming from a non-traditional background, to
Mhm.
check out Team Treehouse and Plural Sites. Just Google it and just try it out. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that.
Try it, and like you said, there's free trials out there, so it doesn't cost a thing anyway to like see if you're interested or not. So
Correct.
yeah, that's really good stuff. Do you had other people that you like reached out to, or do they have other like resources that you use in addition,
Yeah.
or?
And one of the things that's very, very undervalued, in my opinion, especially in this day and age,
Mhm.
is the value of networking. So
Mhm.
I was in a really, really good situation when I felt very alienated about doing cold calls and
Mhm.
making sales and just
Mhm.
bringing in the revenue. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a good salesperson,
Mhm.
keep doing that because you could bring in a lot of money and there's a lot of opportunity for you.
Mhm.
But when that kind of again, that alienation kind of hit me,
Mhm.
I was actually in a software company in the Milwaukee slash Wauwatosa area. So I
Mhm.
started to take a look around. I'm like, hey, what exactly do you guys do again? Because I was literally in the same floor in the same building as professional software developers. So back then, and I'm trying to trace back my memory. They had three screens in front of them,
Mhm.
and it just looked like the Matrix, just like a dark screen, and just like foreign letters and colors just scrolling across their screen. I'm like, what
Mhm.
exactly do you guys do? So through that type of curiosity on my part,
Mhm.
and through thankfully their willingness to kind of explain and guide me through what they actually do, and some of them, like, I love them to death, they actually kind of mentored me saying, hey, try Team Treehouse or try Plural Sites, try this blog and see if this kind of clicks to you.
Mhm.
A lot of it is, at least in that portion of breaking into the professional development world, a lot of it is luck. So I'm very
Mhm.
thankful for that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I would say like some decisions or things come about just based on timing.
Yeah.
My question would be like, uh, how you're learning this new skill or set of a new skill set. Basically, is that comparable to like, I mean, tennis you start at a young age, so it's hard to compare
Yep.
with learning a new sport. But let's say if could you compare it learning like a foreign language or other different obstacles or challenges people had to face? Was it
Yeah.
hard to start right away or?
So tennis. So the idea of tennis, and let's obviously you being a tennis player and you being around
Mhm.
the tennis community, for a good portion of your life,
Mhm.
tennis is a hard sport. People really don't understand that. And I'm not bashing on other sports whatsoever, but
Mhm.
there are a lot of things like the timing, the spacing, the footwork,
Mhm.
the fitness that goes behind, what you see at the U.S. Open and the French Open.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that just a regular spectator um, kind of takes for granted, and that's okay. That's where specialists like you and
Mhm.
me come and say, hey, that
Mhm.
was a difficult shot to pull off given that
Mhm.
situation, given break point down and a set down. That's
Yeah.
a pretty gutsy
Mhm.
move.
Mhm.
um, but it's the short answer to that before I go into a huge tangent is it's different.
Mhm.
It's different in a way that obviously tennis is more physical, is a lot of repetition, but software development is obviously more. It's actually a lot of logic. So the reason why, one of the reasons why people accepted me as being an entry level developer for the earlier part of my career in software
Mm-hmm.
development
Mm-hmm.
was I was able to find patterns, and I was really good at Excel and math. And a lot of people in this podcast
Mm-hmm.
have probably used Excel at one point in their life
Mm-hmm.
with formulas and references. It's Excel itself, it's a programming language. So if you could do Excel, you could probably, if not, I would say you could do some type of software development to an extent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The thing that I would say is the same between tennis and software development, and keeping up with these technologies in the software field, which is changing every day, is
Mm-hmm.
the resilience. So when it comes to tennis, um, statistically speaking, in an average tennis match, 75% of the points you win is not because you hit a winner. It's because your opponent or opponents, if you're playing doubles,
Mm-hmm.
committed an error. And I would say that's actually very true with software development, where you're going to be wrong a lot of the time. It's just the persistence and the willingness to get back up and try and solve this issue that's facing you right now.
Yeah, it's something that's like happening now, and then it's I'd say there's probably a decent amount of moving parts, or I would assume you do different stuff every day or work on different projects.
Not necessarily every day. So again, every software, and I've been with a few companies. I've been with a decent amount of teams, and I also do some side projects
Mm-hmm.
as well when I'm at home.
Pretty interesting stuff on like projects and software development and anything. So Mark, how about your background in tennis? I guess what drew you into tennis, and you're still playing today
Yep.
competitively. Yeah.
Yeah. So my background with tennis was, my parents realized I'm never gonna be an NBA all-star. I'm not going to be 6'5" with huge hands and being able to dunk the ball just on my tippy toes. It's just knowing my biological background. I know,
Mm-hmm.
I know my limitations. So my parents threw me into quite a few different sports, which I love them for, including hockey, a little bit of soccer, baseball, which actually I was pretty decent at, and
Mm-hmm.
volleyball, which was arguably my second best sport growing up. It was fun. So I had good exposure. But tennis was something that just kind of clicked with me. It was just me, typically speaking, in a tennis tournament.
Mm-hmm.
It was me and my racket and the tennis ball against another opponent in singles.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was growing up, I wasn't very social at all, and I still kind of am not,
Mm-hmm.
to a good extent actually.
Mm-hmm.
But if the thing that I really liked about tennis, specifically singles, is that if I made an error, it was because of me. If I hit a winner, it was because of me.
Mm-hmm.
If I won a tennis match, it was because of me. If I lost a tennis match, it was because of me.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of a teammate, not because of a weakness in my team's defense or a superstar, at the front just scoring goals like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And then yeah, you still can play competitively today. Played on Whitewater's team. Still do tournaments and leagues, right?
Yeah, so with the tennis listeners out there, they would be the only ones relating to this. I'm playing at the 4-5 level,
Mm-hmm.
and my singles, obviously, specializing in singles. My UTR is hovering between a 10 and 11, depending on the day.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is fitness, because as a 29-year-old, it's hard to keep up with these freak athletes of being 18 or 19, being that young.
Yep, totally agree.
So I do money tournaments, and I've never won a single dollar. But the reason why I do these money tournaments is because it keeps me focused, and I absolutely love the competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd always say like having a great match. Whether I'd rather play someone that's that's better, more skilled than me versus playing a really weak player and just like baggling them basically. I think you get to I get to utilize my strengths more and get to focus on my game and you learn some stuff like key takeaways from the court, and then also too you're a professional tennis instructor, so you take away stuff that you learn in matches and you help share that and improve other players out there.
Exactly, and the reason, I guess part of the reason why I became a software developer is that it's tennis, especially in singles. A lot of it is problem solving, because you have to like analyze your opponent. You have to analyze your own strengths, and then you have to analyze your opponent's weaknesses and strengths, and you have to play your card against their card. So when it comes to playing against a very good opponent that has a good amount of tools, that has done the training, that is extremely fit, that puzzle of winning the tennis match is harder to solve. And when you do win that tennis match, or if you win that tennis match, depending, on the day, it's very rewarding. Versus, and you could relate to this, versus someone that you could walk onto the court just super hungover and not playing your best and not mentally sharp, and you just roll them one-on-one. Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, there's the fun was the night before.
Yeah, exactly. White claw.
Yeah, white claw.
Claws up.
Claws out, yeah. No, I totally agree. Like you want to use what you like. You want to use skills that you learn and make the most of it. And I think having more challenging matches, you feel a greater reward. Like that win that you actually earn that win 100% versus, I mean, a win's a win regardless, but it feels like you worked more for it, and you being a really hard worker in the business and in your career, it just kind of makes sense overall, or that's overall your personality, and that's a lot of competitive athletes out there, tennis or other sports. You want to beat that Rafael Nadal or Roger Federer out there, kind of thing, I guess. Well, the bigger names, so like those non-tennis listeners, they know who I'm referring to.
And it's one of those things too with tennis. It's like and this is kind of a technology term, but it's not super technical. It's a quicker feedback loop than most sports, because, for example, if you hit a really bad forehand that lands short without a lot of spin, a good opponent would like crank that and punish you, where an opponent that's not nearly as experienced or nearly as aggressive will kind of just push it back to the middle and just reset the point. No, I want to have the feedback. Hey, Mark, you hit a bad shot, or a shot not as good as you probably should have. You will probably lose this point.
Yeah, like if you're one of the players that realizes on the spot, like you can make, and the cool thing is you can make corrections like right after a single point, or even in a point, to be honest, if it's a wrong rally. You can quick learner and then quick problem solver, I would say too. Tennis players are. So tennis. I think the last time I spoke to you, you tried a little bit of pickleball. Are you still in pickleball a little bit, or?
To an extent. So there's a lot of crossover between tennis and pickleball. There's the hand-eye coordination. There's actually the footwork, which is I would say the most important. You obviously have like a racket / paddle, and then you have a ball. One of them is yellow and fuzzy. The other is white and has like 17 holes in it, or whatever it's called. I tried it. I was actually decent at it. I was an open level player my first year. I only played like 5 or 6 times, and it's fun. It was actually really good cross training, because you have to stay low through basically the entire point, whether it's singles or doubles, and you have to hustle a lot. But for me, like, as fun as it was, and I hope to God I pick it up sometime in the near future again. It wasn't nearly as it didn't add as much value to my skill set as teaching and or playing tennis and or doing cross training for tennis. So again, I hope to pick it up sometime soon. It's a great sport. I suggest that everybody try it at least once, because it's fun and it's a little more casual than tennis.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, casual, social too, lifelong sport, or I could see myself playing it a little bit more down the road, I guess. But yeah, tennis is still super competitive and really, I'd say really good, and it's a really good workout too. I guess question for you, what's like, how do you fit in with your schedule, like, or how do you stay focused, like to keep on playing tennis, cross train for tennis, work on your businesses, full-time job, like, yeah.
Okay, this is where a lot of my scheduling comes in. So I would highly suggest everybody out there that is even seriously considering about starting their own business or even working part-time on top of balancing family life, social life, you know, stuff like that. Oh my goodness. And I was a huge disbeliever at this at first until it started to hit me in the face. Get a personal calendar going so you know where you have to be at any point in time. So you can schedule, you know, coffee meetings, interviews, blocks of time to do podcasts with Kelly Johnson on the Daily Grind.
I like that.
You know, workout sessions. Start using some sort of calendar system. And for me, it's Google Calendar, because being a software developer, I'm a Google type of guy, and I know where I'm supposed to be at any point in time.
Well said. Yeah, I would definitely thumbs up to your comment there. I'm not a software developer, so I'm more of an Apple user, but my iPhone, my iCalendar I sync with that on multiple different devices. Use Google Calendar for my Gmail account. Definitely a great resource to have. Yeah, schedule time, and it makes your life easier, I think, too. You can balance things. Then you can. It's not like any additional effort. It's just like everyone's on their phone all the time, so might as well make the most of it, you know.
Well, that's one of the things too. Like being born in 1990. Holy cow, that was a while ago. I hate being stereotyped as a millennial, but the thing is, I truly am. And as you said, if you're going to be on your phone, at least be efficient with it. Build value for yourself, so you're building your value for the people around you. And you know, obviously, I'm using Google Calendar as an example because I'm not an Apple kind of guy, and you know, it's perfectly fine if you use Apple products. It's perfectly fine with that. But when it comes to what something like Google Calendar can offer any individual with any type of ambition, if you schedule yourself and you promise yourself to work out on Wednesday, September 4th between 6:30 and 7:30, the chances of you committing to that schedule for yourself to work out is much, much, much higher compared to someone that doesn't have a calendar. I can promise you that, statistically speaking.
Because it's like in front of you, it's on your schedule. I put a lot of times with if I time block things, I put reminders or like 5 or 15 minutes ahead or 30 minutes depending on how far it is. Then like I see that reminder, like, oh yeah, I gotta get to this place. I gotta work out. I gotta play tennis. Gotta do the podcast episode. Like I think those, and then even just alarm clocks too, or just some kind of thing. It flashes like, oh, I gotta do this. It makes a mental note. And if you're kind of distracted, now you're refocused and you're able to get there. Big thing for me is just getting to places on time and make sure I make the most of my time with others, because I know I value people's time a lot. So it's really important to appreciate and respect others. I think,
absolutely. And when it comes to that, it's time management. That's what's super important.
Keyword.
You can break it down any way you want. When it comes to money, when it comes to, I don't know, get-togethers. Time is our most primitive resource. It's the most valuable. because you could make anybody in this world could make anybody in the US could theoretically make $1,000,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to work maybe 200 hours a week, which is obviously impossible, but they have to work their butts off. But it's like how you choose to spend that time. It's balancing between going to the gym, watching something valuable on YouTube, or taking time to spend time with families and loved ones. That's what's, in my opinion, the most important. So if you could self-manage your time and have your own personal assistant using some sort of calendar device like Google Calendar or whatever Apple's version of that is,
sure, yeah,
you are way ahead of the game, no matter what age group you're in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of different apps out there to use. You can talk to people like myself or Mark, or other people that that manage their time really well, or you see them as a peer or a mentor. Also, too, like what you mentioned earlier, just going into a different current career that you're in, knowing what you're interested in and what you get the most pleasure out of, or things that you don't like. I wouldn't spend personally, I wouldn't spend as that much time on something I don't really like a lot versus tennis. I like it a lot, so I want to do more. I want to spend more of my time with tennis or with friends or family, or what's your biggest values. I think that's another key thing to have too. Like, just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean you have to do it, or be involved in things that you value the most.
Correct. And it's that, and this is where the business part of me comes in. And I was classically, quote unquote, classically trained, at least from an academic standpoint. It's the definition of time value of money. It's like, hey, is it worth it being here? That is a question you have to ask yourself. Is it worth it being here? And I hope to God that the answer is yes. But if you're obviously worth, let's say, $20 an hour, but they're only paying you $10, well, I really hope you're enjoying that $10 an hour, because you get paid twice as much doing another activity.
Yeah, is it an activity that you like doing, or something that you're just doing just for the heck of it, or actually 2 episodes ago, I talked to Richard Lewis, and he was saying it's okay to say no to some things. You don't have to be involved in everything. Focus on, prioritize, and what you like to do. I think that's another key point. So maybe so focusing on new ideas or new activities. So Mark, maybe you want to tell us about like your drone, being a drone enthusiast.
Yeah, so I've been doing some research, and like, drones are a pretty cool thing nowadays. Obviously, I'm pretty sure you've heard of what drones are capable of doing, even from a personal / recreational standpoint. So obviously I'm a software developer, but my biggest weakness is the artistic things of how data is presented. So obviously Facebook, Google, and Amazon do a pretty good job about presenting huge amounts of data that's relevant to the person looking at it in a very fashionable, logical way. I'm not necessarily strong at that, and that's okay. I'm willing to admit it. So I was doing some research, and I was talking to a few buddies of mine that I work with. I'm like, yeah, drones are pretty cool, and actually make a pretty good profit off of it, once you get the hang of it. So I decided to buy an expensive drone, and I've been plugging away at that for the past like 12, 13 days. I've done some pretty cool stuff with it that I never imagined I could have done even like 3 months ago. And it's just the idea that, hey, I dropped this amount of money for this high-end drone. I'm going to learn as much as humanly possible about this, and then I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to do something artistic. I'm going to show not necessarily the world, I'm going to show people that, hey, Mark is doing something pretty cool outside of tennis and outside
Mhm.
of something that's like regular software programming related.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess how do you like pinpoint what like drone that you're looking to purchase? Background. I have actually no background on drones, but I see
Okay,
cool
it's
videos
fine.
online. So, did you like search on Amazon? Did you kind of like listen to different product reviews?
Yeah, and
You,
that's obviously that's perfectly fine. We could talk about this in another podcast if you'd
mhm,
be so inclined to have me back about
mhm,
specifically talking about drones for 30
mhm.
minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm around a bunch of nerds,
Mhm,
myself included, and nerds tend to learn about nerdy things such as
mhm,
drones.
mhm,
And we're just talking about, hey, my buddy has a drone and he's making a pretty not a like good living necessarily because this friend of mine
mhm,
just kind of started his own drone business. So I have no idea how that's going to happen. He could either be a millionaire or he could be
mhm,
homeless in the next 3 or 4
mhm.
months, which
Yeah.
is it's part of the life.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that he's learning something new and he's financially and emotionally invested in it.
Mhm.
So so when it comes to drone stuff, basically, you have to first of all buy it.
Yep.
Second of all, you have to have the ambition to use it on a somewhat regular basis. Thirdly, you have to have the artistic kind of like vision to say, hey, I want to make this shot and I don't know how to make this happen quite yet. And the last thing is with that vision is, hey, I have this idea in my head for a shot. How am I going to make this happen in the most artistic ways possible? So, I'm looking at YouTube videos constantly whenever I have some free time
Mhm.
about, hey, how do I do this the best way possible? And because I don't have that artistic like finesse ingrained in me quite yet. So it's
Mhm.
kind of the reason why I got into it is obviously, it's fun, it's
Mhm.
nerdy, it's cool.
Yeah.
But
Def.
also it's
Mhm.
bring out my it's forcing myself to bring out the artistic side that I haven't had necessarily in my back pocket all these years.
Mhm. Yeah, something new challenge. Very well. Brought in your portfolio, I guess.
Correct.
Do you foresee like the drones? I guess I don't know if you consider this like an industry, but this trend. Do you think this is gonna be more people going into this? Like,
Let's see. More people getting into it as like a hobby or as like a business?
I guess let's first go with hobby. Um.
Hobby, yes. Obviously, I'm still in that hobby kind of mindset when it comes to drones, but obviously, I take it more seriously than most because I'm still in that um, honeymoon phase because
Yeah.
it was less than 2 weeks ago, which
Mhm.
is absolutely normal as a human being.
Yeah. Exactly.
So when it comes to the hobbies, you have people working at these drone companies, and the
Mhm.
biggest one is DJI, and they're out of
Mhm.
China, but they make really good quality products.
Mhm.
They're going to have a really good marketing team to always target those hobbyists with extra money to spend a
Mhm.
good amount of money on a drone that they may or may not use for like maybe a month or two,
Mhm.
and that's okay. Those are the casual consumers.
Yeah.
Um,
What about more from like a business side?
from a business side, a lot of that is going to depend on the government regulation. And this is full disclosure, this is completely my opinion.
Mhm.
A lot of this is going to depend on the government regulation on unmanned aerial vehicles,
Mhm.
UAVs,
Okay.
and that's governed by the FAA, which is a branch of the federal government, and they have some state stuff going on too. Because when I was reading into this, I had to learn a few things because even as a recreational slash personal use
Yep.
owner of a drone, on my Instagram, I take really cool shots of downtown Milwaukee and the Metro
Mhm.
Milwaukee area.
Mhm.
I had to do quite a few things, including registering and then taking that register ID and using a permanent marker and putting it onto my drone, kind of like a license plate.
Okay.
And there's obviously certain things I can't do. And based on the GPS coordinates that I have, um, when I turn on the drone, it actually may or may not turn on. For example, if
Oh.
I'm right next to General Mitchell Airport and I try to turn on my drone, it just won't turn on because of obviously safety reasons why a drone should not be turned on next to a major international airport, which I completely understand.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, yeah, safety first, y'all. No, but yeah, like you see, I guess people using maybe in photography or videography type businesses to add like as a marketing tool,
Correct.
a drone view.
The biggest from a commercial standpoint, one of the biggest needs for a professional grade drone and a professional grade drone operator is real estate. Now, think about it this way. Let's say you're a CEO or a CIO of a huge corporation that's, bringing in almost $1 billion a year. If you're going to buy a house and I'm going to use this for context, if you're going to buy a house in the Mequon, Thiensville / River Hills area, which is a really nice part of Milwaukee, where each property is worth like at least $1 million. But the land that property covers is at least like 2 acres for the most part, right?
Yep.
A regular photographer isn't going to be able to cover that much land with a good perspective. That's where the drones kind of come in, to where, hey, this real estate person is trying to sell this property that just got on the market. However, it's taking up 5 acres. To present that in a good visual, professional manner, that real estate agent is going to hire a contractor, like a drone operator, to take a bird's eye view of the whole property.
Yeah, that's simple solution to like a problem. Yeah, drones.
Correct.
They can definitely definitely key trait of having one of those, or to using that commercial aspect.
Yep, and that's obviously a very good example of the use for a drone in a commercial real world scenario.
Yeah, there's many examples out there. You could probably just like search on YouTube or any videos online.
Correct.
So with your drone, Mark, do you have any things later this week? I guess drone or non-drone related. Like, what's your daily grind look like coming up?
So my daily grind is just all plopped into my Google Calendar, which is the calendar system I use. So unfortunately for me, I got bills to pay that I'm going to pay in the middle of the day. I got tennis lessons just kind of sprawled across my calendar, especially while it's still nice outside, hanging around the hopefully high 60s for the next month or two, so I can get some outdoor tennis. I got Sunday, September 8th, I have a Cubs game with some of my buddies from high school that are coming up to Miller Park, which is in West Dallas, which is right next to Milwaukee. Me being a huge Cubs fan, I hope the Cubs make it to the playoffs, but given they're the Cubs, probably not, but I can hope for the best. I have my workouts scheduled right in front of me, and typically speaking, I know exactly where I need to be at any certain point in time, including drone photo shoots.
Very nice.
So not only do I have the time, not only do I have the time span, but I also have the location plugged in. And one of the most exciting things I have going for me on Saturday, September 7th, is I'm actually taking a trip to Whitewater to film with my drone.
Yeah.
One of the bigger tournaments that they're hosting. So that'll be fun. And full disclosure, it's going to be out of personal use because I don't have my commercial license to fly a UAV yet. It's out of fun.
Very nice. Yeah, that's really cool outlook. Just the tennis matches from above. I bet that's gonna turn out great. Fingers crossed for really good weather this weekend. I'm actually on the low. Hanging on the low key. I just got back from New York City this past weekend for work. So, and this week back in Chicago, we have a ton of all day meetings in the office and outside the office, basically. So, end of this week, I'm looking forward to kind of relaxing, playing tennis. I'm in one of my tennis leagues. I need to schedule a match by next Sunday. Um, make the most of really good weather. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So nothing super crazy. But yeah, daily grind. Things are looking well. I'm gonna try to run outside more. As you listeners know, I did the Chicago Triathlon 2 weekends ago. So now I'm back to just focusing more on running. So stay tuned. I might have a half marathon coming up in a couple of weeks. But yeah, that's both of our daily grinds. I guess, Mark, do you want to give our listeners something as we wrap up our show with like a motivational quote, word of the day for us?
Sure. Given we're on the tennis topic, that you obviously have emphasized on quite a bit. So when people think of tennis, they think of Roger Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. One of the people that are just outside of that part of glory, especially when it comes to this era, is Stan Wawrinka, who is just under the shadow of Roger Federer, because Stan Wawrinka, I think, only has 3 Grand Slams, where Federer, his Swiss counterpart of the same age, within a year at least, 20? Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, Federer
must be that once in a racket, right?
yeah, Federer has 20. Yeah, Stan has confirming. Yeah, he has 3 Grand Slams.
Yeah, only 3. But hey, Stan has done the best he can, and I love him for it. So you guys can Google this too, but he has a tattoo on his left arm, his left forearm specifically. And this is a quote that always sticks with me, given, everybody fails, but it's how you pick yourself up. So his tattoo on his left forearm states, translated to English, obviously, because he's Swiss, ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better.
That's really well. That's really great quote. Even as a tattoo, that's great. Yeah, Stan definitely like a life example of that in his career.
Correct. Because he could have just hovered under Federer's shadow as the Swiss number 2 the rest of his life. But no, he made something out of himself, and he went through some personal problems. I believe, like a divorce. I think he divorced his previous wife, which obviously is a hard decision to make, but he made the most of it, and he's trying out there. And, after surgeries, after mental lapses, he's out there slugging away. And unfortunate timing for this podcast, he did lose to Daniel Medvedev in the quarterfinals earlier today, but that's fine.
But he's definitely trying, coming back from injury. Just his whole life experience. Really great motivational piece for us to close on today's podcast episode. I guess, Mark, we just want to give a special thanks for you coming onto our show and talking about your background. How can listeners, I guess, if they have questions, comments, more interested in things that you do, how can they reach out to you or follow you?
Sure. The best way to get in touch with me using social media is my Instagram. That's where I post some of my some tennis related stuff, but mainly drone stuff. Not so much programming, because no one wants to see a grown man cry at his computer for 30 minutes straight. So my Instagram username is major_coffee, MAJOR_coffee. And if there's any aspiring software developers out there that want to crack into the field without a specific computer science or software engineering background, hell, reach out to me. I'll do the best I can. Any drone enthusiasts, again, feel free to reach out to me. I'll do the best I can with any advice. Again, I'm not sponsored by any company whatsoever, so any advice I give you is my pure honesty and probably for your best interest.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Mark. And we'll put his social media contact info in our Dailygram podcast in the underneath our episode credits, basically. So until next time, thanks for tuning into the Daily Grind. My name is Kelly, and have a great day. Goodbye.